Welcome to the Back on Track podcast with me, Sam West. In every episode, I interview someone who's changed, recovered, or become successful after having faced real adversity in their life. What's more, at the end of every episode, guests give you a few bits of advice which you can use to improve your own life too. On today's episode is actually a good friend of mine called Max Anglin, who suffered on and off for years as a result of problems with drinking, gambling, and mental illness. However, Max managed to channel his addictive personality into the world of business and actually runs two successful companies. Sadly, like many others, Max was forced to pause the running of both businesses when the pandemic hit, and with too much time on his hands and a lack of purpose, he became depressed and turned to alcohol to numb the pain. After going through 9 months of sheer hell, I'm really pleased to say that Max has managed to overcome his battles with drinking and mental illness and is now running 300 kilometers in 30 days to raise money for mental health charity Young Minds. So, without further ado, let's find out what happened by listening to his story from start to finish. Max, first of all, mate, I just want to say a massive thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast this evening to share your story. I think it's also a really brave thing to do, so I really appreciate that. How are you doing? How's everything going?
Yes, very good, mate. As I mentioned just before this, I said, I'm midway through this charity raising sort of not event, but it's 300 kilometers in 30 days. And originally, yes, it was going to be sort of 10 kilometers a day, but then obviously with work now and everything, I've sort of, I'm on course to do 300 kilometers, maybe even before the end of the 30 days. But obviously I'm going to do the last bit on the last 30 days, like a sort of semi-event with people coming along and having a look, because by that time you'll be able to meet other people outside your household. But with everything now getting quite positive, with the government coming out with sort of a game plan to the actual final lockdown. Obviously it's good, positive with work. You know, we're planning on opening in May, sort of at 60 to 70%, and hopefully by June be back to sort of 100%. But yeah, like we don't know yet completely, but we'll see what happens. But it's positive. Yes, a lot better.
Exactly, mate. Yeah, it's positive for the first time in ages, isn't it? And I think there'll be a lot of people out there that are, feeling a lot better. There's a lot more hope out there. I know that I feel better mentally now that we can see that there is a way out of this, and it feels a lot more definite than it has done before. And obviously, yeah, great that things are looking up for you business-wise and all the rest of it. But Max, as you know, I like to try and rewind back to the start of each guest story so that listeners can really grasp it from start to finish. And I know from speaking to you before that you mentioned to me that things started to go sort of a bit off the rails, sort of maybe around the age of 18, in the form of a gambling addiction, which sounds, really tough at such a young age. Could you tell us a bit about, how you got into gambling, how quickly it got out of control, and ultimately what effect it had on you?
Well, I would say the actual, the gambling started at around 16. My brother's 2 years older than me. So I used to have his, well, probably shouldn't say this, but used to have his ID. We don't look too dissimilar.
Yeah. So, me and my brother too.
So I sort of used to go to bookies at like 16, like lunchtime at school, sort of small amounts of money, just for the enjoyment of it. Actually really enjoyed it at that point, not losing much really, just sort of taking pocket money and just having a bit of fun. And then it continued, sort of started getting a bit more serious when I was 17. And then obviously when I was 18, I took a gap year because I didn't want to go straight to university. And I just wanted to, have a year of sort of being able to work, see if I actually wanted to go to university rather than, just rush straight into uni and whatever. And so I started working down in Billingsgate Market when I was 18, which involved probably, I used to get up about 3:30 in the morning and be finished by about 12 in the afternoon. I'd get there at 4:30, pick up everything, sort everything out, and then be back, 12:30. So I had a lot of spare time on my hands. after, like, imagine having a whole afternoon and evening where everyone else is, working or at uni or whatever.
What are you going to do? Yeah.
What was I going to do? I was earning quite good money for a 18-year-old, considering I didn't have to pay any rent, no bills, nothing, a lot of disposable income. And then obviously the continuation from sort of going at lunchtime started to go, oh, what have I got to do this afternoon? So I'd then just go to sort of Will Hill.
For those that don't know, Will Hill is a bookmaker. Yeah.
He's a bookmaker. And then I would, I'm not joking, I would lose my weekly wages every week.
Really? Really? So there were no weeks where it actually worked out for you?
I mean, sometimes I won loads, that's the whole thing with gambling is the reason it's such a dangerous, addiction to have. It is an addiction, a dangerous addiction to have, is because the highs are so high. Sometimes you can spend £500 and £3,000, but the problem is that gives you the ability to think that that's possible every time. So, and if you do win £3,000, it doesn't matter, because you end up just spend way more. You buy all the stuff that you've neglected buying over the last 6 weeks because you lost everything. You lost a lot of money, and then what you do is your stakes go higher. So it's actually, winning is actually the worst part about gambling, because if you win massive amounts to get the hit that you need, i.e. it's similar to drugs, similar to alcohol, similar to smoking, you get the dopamine hit that you need, or that you're craving at the time with the addiction, is your stakes increase, because a smaller stake doesn't interest you.
I think that's really interesting, and I've not heard that before, actually, with gambling addiction. And when you say it, it's so logical. It is just like drugs. Ultimately, you're going to have to keep increasing the amount of money and increasing the amount of money so that you get that same hit. That's really interesting. I hadn't heard that before, but it seems so obvious to me. And Max, I know, again, from sort of speaking to you before we did this podcast, that you said to me that, generally speaking, when things sort of go off the rails for you, alcohol generally has a role to play. So during this time, when you've got loads of free time in the afternoon, you've got a sort of a gambling addiction brewing there. Was alcohol playing a part there, and did it generally make things worse, or was it just gambling at that time that you would say was an issue? Just
to go back to the gambling and the risk, the reward aspects of it. I mean, obviously, when you win a lot of money, at the time, I mean, alcohol wasn't a problem, but also, I know it sounds very odd, the losing aspect of gambling, the fact that you have, in a sense, like a sort of a come down from it, because you have, the incredible high of winning, and then you lose it, and then you have the come down that's post the loss, which is indescribable. It's not like drugs, it's not like alcohol, it's not a hangover, it's pure depression. But the problem is you keep going back for more, because you want to win the money back. And when you win it back, you're the happiest person alive. And your brain just doesn't know where it is. You win it back, and then you're happy again. And then you lose it, you're unhappy. And then you're just in a vicious cycle. And then obviously with that comes alcohol. When you're feeling down, you start to, you drink more, whatever. You start to, when you're feeling good, you drink more. The thing with alcohol is it actually works both ways. If you're on top of the world, what do people do? Celebrate, have a drink. If you're in the pits of doom, what do people do? They have a drink. So then you combine sort of drinking more, and then in actual fact, I obviously planned on going traveling to Asia, and I'd actually managed to accumulate a bit of money from which I'd actually saved through my parents. I'd given my parents some money because I was gambling so much. So you
couldn't touch it.
So I couldn't touch it. So I'd accumulated enough money to go traveling by, sometimes when I wasn't being stupid, sending, my mum money or my dad money, and realizing the gambling was a bit of an issue at the time, but thinking it was under control. And I had no expenses as well, because I was living at home. But then I went traveling to Asia. There is no gambling in Asia. You can't. It's illegal for 6 months. And that's, sort of no gambling. Didn't gamble for 6 months. Went clean. But then, for that 6 months, drunk to absolute oblivion. binge drinking. I don't know if you've been. Have you been to Thailand?
Yeah, I've been to Thailand, been to Indonesia, been to Vietnam.
It's massive. When you go on those things, it's, you drink a lot, right?
Of course, yeah.
And at the time, again, I thought I was young, 18, could do what I want. My consumption of alcohol became humongous. You think you're young. See everyone else drinking around you, think, oh, but even at that point, like my friends were like, I was going out every night till 5 a.m., drinking. They do buckets out there, right? Everyone else drinks one of them and they're absolutely, gone. I can do 4.
Yeah.
And
it's dangerous.
And at that point, and that lasted for 6 months, thinking it was normal because everyone else did it. I find nowadays that the excuse is, oh, we're young.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, I can relate to exactly what you're saying because, to some extent, I went through a similar thing when I was younger, binge drinking to oblivion. I kind of just wrote it off as like, exactly as you say, I'm young, I like to go out and party quite hard, it's fine. But the problem is, at least in my cases, it catches up with you. And I think a lot of the sort of mental health things that I have nowadays are probably as a result of that lifestyle, like growing up.
100%. I mean, 100% from having, from the excessive drinking when I was young. Again, I talk about, I've done a lot of research, and obviously I've been to a lot of therapy, spoken to a lot of, psychologists, whatever. What it does is it plays with your, again, talking about the gambling with the, the dopamine reward risk, like you're basically chasing reward every time, right? Which is alcohol. And when you are that age, your brain isn't fully developed. So the binge drinking, you think it's fine, everyone's fine. But, actually, to be honest with you, it has an effect on you for later life. Like, and I didn't see it at the time. I just thought it was normal. I thought, oh, everyone else is doing it. But what actually, it took going. So I got back to the UK, started gambling again, went back into work, went to uni. And at uni, surprisingly, if you've got divorced parents, you get given a lot of money from the government.
Yeah.
They give you grants and whatever. And my parents were paying my rent, and so I was getting a lot of disposable income. Coming home, working, again started gambling, but also the drinking continued. You go to Freshers Week, right? It turns into Freshers Month.
It's drinking every day again. Yeah.
And again, you just look around and you go, everyone else is doing this. It's not bad. At the time, you don't really get hangovers, right? You don't get. Well, I never got the negative effects ever. It never, my mental health at that point, I thought was fine, and I thought I was happy. I probably, in hindsight, was extremely unhappy at the time, covering it up with alcohol and gambling and trying to get a fix of whatever I could. The gambling came back in, but the work, when I talk about winning a lot, is not good, right? Winning is, as a gambler, it's not good because it ruins your concept of money as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I think I won like £28,000 in a night off about £3,000.
Jesus.
When I was absolutely like gone to the world drunk. And I was in my uni halls playing, it was on blackjack online. And I was on top of the world.
Yeah, obviously 28 grand.
Yeah, I was like, Jesus, I'm quit. I don't know. I was like, I'm stopping. I'm not gonna gamble for like forever. I don't need to, because I've just won all my money back that I've lost over the last 3 years or whatever. But the problem is that doesn't happen, does it? And then I started gambling incessantly on horses every day. You're talking, would wake up at 9 a.m. and gamble on Australian horses, UK horses, 12 o'clock they come online. In the evening, do American horses. You can actually gamble all day if you'd like,
At this point, Max, are you realizing in yourself that this is getting out of hand? This is a problem. Are you thinking about maybe getting some help and stuff, or is that not occurring to you at that stage?
At this point, I'm thinking this is the best thing on earth. Why does everyone not do it? I love it. it's so harm free. I've got unlimited money now at uni. I've got £28,000 to play around with. But the problem is the stakes get higher, right? So I'm not doing 50 quid on a horse. I'm doing 150 quid, 200 quid on a horse. And then it got to the point where I was doing £500 on a horse, because obviously, it's won money anyway. So, and I'm doing this for about a month. Again, just ups and downs. And then one night I lost the whole 28,000.
My God.
Plus an extra, I think, 10,500.
Wow.
On top. Yeah. And so that morning I woke up, and this is probably about, 8 months into uni. So just before the final exams. And I packed a bag, and I called up my dad at the time and my brother at the time, and I cried, and I went, I don't know what I've done. Again, I hadn't quite hit rock bottom, because I wasn't upset that I blamed being drunk. I didn't realize it was a problem at the time. I was like, this isn't a problem. I was blaming the being drunk, being stupid. Literally packed a bag, went back to London, and cried to my dad, and I went, you need to bail me out. Whatever. He goes, I'm not bailing you out. He's like, you can F off, basically. But he's like, you can live with me.
Yeah.
But you don't gamble. So I lived with him, but I was still gambling.
So what effect was this having on you going to university, Max? Because
by this point, uni was in the background.
Right.
I didn't even go to any lectures for like a month and a half. Completely in the background. First year of uni is not particularly difficult, right? And then went back up to do the exams, and then came back down. Basically, just went to do the exams, came back down, and then was still gambling, like, because I didn't think it was a problem, and still drinking heavily, and then sort of came back for summer, kept on drinking, kept on gambling. Went to the second year of university, and just kept like the whole cycle of, I didn't realize at the time, but the mental health impacts are just horrendous. You're going from highs to lows. You're going highs to lows, highs to lows.
Gambling sounds savage in that sense, because as you say, you have the euphoria of a win, and then you have the absolute lows of when you've lost everything. And when you throw in hangovers,
well, you can't even afford to go get like, £2 of chips at the shop generally, but you have the euphoria of winning like £28,000 where you can go buy a car.
Yeah.
But the drinking also on top of this, constant drinking. And then basically it all came to a head. I think so. I was living in a house with 6 others, and by this point I just wasn't going to any lectures. Had pretty much just come to the realization, I'm done with uni. Spent a month up there just getting drunk, doing whatever, being a uni student. Just didn't even think about it. I don't think I even opened my emails. You get the portal.
Yeah. Do you think that apathy, Max, for uni came from the drinking and the gambling, or do you think that apathy was there sort of inherently anyway towards university?
I don't think I went to uni because I wanted to go there. I genuinely think I went there to just get drunk, just to live a life of not, normality. But I got to that realization after a year and a half. So it was the first term, the end of the first term of second year. I got to the realization. I hadn't even opened my, you get the portal on the whatever, I think it's called Idleman or whatever. I can't remember. It's a long time ago. Opened it up after a month and a half, and I get 3 emails from the Vice Chancellor of Leeds. I went to Leeds Uni. Please, can we have a meeting? Like 2 weeks ago. Please, can we have a meeting a week ago? You are now gone
from the uni.
Yeah. Here is your, thing to say. You're now expelled as such from Leeds University.
How did that feel, Max, when you opened that and you saw you are now expelled? Because even if you have sort of apathy yourself, I don't know, seeing it officially in writing and also knowing that you've got the drinking and the gambling going on, was that a low point, or did you not care at all?
That wasn't the low point. the low point hadn't come yet. I was happy. I was going, thank God this nightmare's over.
Right.
I can go back to London.
Mm.
Went back to London. This is the strange thing is I was just happy to get home. But the problem I had at home was my dad had a 3-bed house in Mayfair. But also, didn't spend much time in the UK. So I got home and again, I was just on my own, not much to do. Disposable income again, the drinking and started taking drugs in London. Started going out constantly with my friends who were a bit older and were in London. And then one day my dad came back home, I think 3 days early from wherever he was, I can't remember. And he found a note on the side of his bed with some cocaine rolled up.
Jeez, yeah, not good.
And he packed my bags and put me literally on the street.
Wow.
And was like, I'm completely fed up with you. You're bringing people back to my house. You're going out 3-4 times a week. You're unemployed. I'm done. And the thing is that was the point that I needed to hit.
Yeah.
Does that make I had to? If I hadn't have hit that point, I don't think I would have actually thought anything was wrong. I just thought I was a young, bit out of hand, whatever. And I cried 3 days, going, "You can't do this." Begged. I'll change.
As you say, yeah.
And he just flat out said no. So I call up my brother and I go to my brother. I go, "I need somewhere to sleep." Generally, my dad to go to hospital. That was he was going. He's like, "I love you as a son, blah blah blah, whatever. But you need to change."
Jesus, that must have been.
He said,
hard.
"Go to a hostel. You're not my problem. You can't stay here. Your bags are outside." Called up my brother. Luckily, my brother was like, "Look, come stay on my sofa." So slept on the sofa. I think, honestly, in Parsons Green, it was for about a month. Wasn't working and managed. I went to the pub actually in Notting Hill, and at this point, I was like, I need to get a job. I wasn't. I'd hit rock bottom. I was crying. Depressed. I was like, I need to get a job. And then I went to the pub in Notting Hill, and actually, someone that I knew there was like, look. Was like, look, I think I'd spoken to him about whatever, getting kicked out of uni and being a bit of a whatever. And he goes, look, well, the great job for you is go into sales.
Absolutely, yeah. Often fits well with people that have outgoing personalities and stuff like that. Yeah.
And if you can focus whatever you. At this point, I'd actually. I'd actually admitted that I've got a gambling problem.
Right.
I went to, I started going to Gamblers Anonymous, and actually managed and went to therapy, and managed to kick it pretty much, into the distance as a problem.
Max, I'm curious for you because that's a massive moment, isn't it? When you actually reflect on yourself and you say, this actually isn't right. This is a problem, both in terms of, gambling and mental health. And you mentioned, Gambling Anonymous and therapy. How difficult was it for you in the beginning to first try those things? Did you feel like a sort of internal resistance, a stigma?
So the Gamblers Anonymous, I hated it. I couldn't stand it. It was the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life. It was up in Warren Street, up in near King's Cross.
Right.
And I remember turning up when I was 21, and I was like, the youngest person there by far. And I just thought, how have I ended up here?
Yeah.
I was just like, what? I'm just an idiot. But then I just kept going because I was like, I just wasn't gambling. It wasn't necessarily because of that Gambling Anonymous. I don't put it down to that. I don't put it down to the fact that, I'm going to Gambling Anonymous. It's really helped me.
Yeah.
It was just something to do every week, which reminded me not to gamble.
Yeah.
Because you see other people who, have inflicted so much pain on. The problem with addictions is that it's the people around you who deal with them. I.e., my dad, my brother, my mum. It's always the people that closest to you suffer the most, right? Because you're so selfish. All you can think about is yourself at the time. My problems, I need help, I need this, I need that. And to see that in other people and to see the damage that they've done, on their families or their whatever, it does actually, at that age, it made me think I need to stop this. And I actually managed to, at that point, the compulsivity of it, maybe I was just young and being stupid, left. So I left. I have gambled since, but not in a compulsive way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's in a place of control now.
I don't gamble anymore, but there has been times that I have gambled in, and you're talking like a 20 quid bet, and it doesn't turn into £500 bet. It's not a compulsive problem that it was, because I didn't gamble for about a year and a half. I think after that, maybe it was a young age thing, whatever, but it never went. It's I don't gamble now.
Yeah.
But it's not been a compulsive thing since. I put that down to the GA. It scared the shit out of me.
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes you need that hard-hitting thing to show you, the way that you're going, and then that causes you to kind of change direction. And also, I'm sure therapy played a role in that as well.
Yeah, well, you get told. The problem with being that age and having something that I was genuinely addicted to, it's a tricky, slippery slope. You're 21, and then I go, oh God, then the booze,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what I realized over being that young and is I have an addictive personality.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah,
I have an addictive personality to good and bad things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Having an addictive personality can be very good. I.e., I can put it into bad things, i.e. gambling, drinking, drugs, whatever. But the great thing about it also is someone who's compulsive and has that trait in him is if they find something good, they generally succeed.
Absolutely, because you throw yourself into it 110%.
Yeah, and basically it's a bit like the gambling. It's a bit like the gambling, the drinking, and the drugs. You throw yourself into that 100%. But if you put it into something positive, you find yourself succeeding very much at everything you do that's positive, i.e. job, exercise, sport, cooking, learning things, basically.
Anything, yeah. Well, it sounds like you'd hit a real sort of patch of progression. You did the really big things of going to GA and going to therapy and, kicking the gambling habit. And yeah, I know that you went to the US, right, to do software sales. And it sounds as though things are going a lot better. If you could just tell us about that period of time.
Well, once I kicked the gambling, I went kicked the booze as well to an extent. Again, kicked it as a compulsive thing, realized it was a problem, and then got this job in London. It was in Kensington, the office, through the person I'd met. It was the Cow in Notting Hill. Concentrated on that, along with exercise, meeting positive people, generally just creating a positive environment to succeed, which I hadn't done before because I'd been so compulsive about drinking and gambling that you'd picked up a lot of negative people along the way and a lot of things. And the job, I was there, originally it was a 3-month trial. So he was like, you can work for 3 months. And then at the end of 3 months, like, I'm pretty sure you won't stay with us. This was in London, this is in Kensington. And then did really well for 3 months. Exceeded, got a promotion after 3 months. And then another 2 months passed, got another promotion. Then another 3 months passed. And, I was only 22 at the time, but then everyone else in my role was 28. And I'd only been there for 7 months. I thought, geez, what can in 7 months of not being an idiot?
Yeah, look what you can achieve.
What can you achieve? And then they came to me and they were like, "Do you want to go to America?" They opened an office in Boston, because I think I was going to leave. I can't remember. There was a reason. I can't really remember the reason, but they just opened an office in Boston. I was going to leave to go somewhere else or whatever. I can't remember the full things. And they were like, "Well, what will make you stay?" And I said, "I'm bored of London." And then went to Boston in the States for 6 months and worked out there and was on my own for 6 months. Met people out there, obviously made friends out there and stuff. But
that's interesting, because traditionally that had been a bit of a problem for you when you've been left to your own devices, when you got that market job when you were younger, when you moved back into your dad's house. But so was that a problem this time?
Well, no, that's the thing, is I did it because I wanted to challenge myself to see if I could do it. I was so independent at the time because I was doing so. I can't remember where I was living in London. I can't remember when I was, but I think I might have been living on my own. Or like I'd spent so much time on people's sofas. I might have even been living in between people's sofas for a while. I can't remember. But got a flat in Boston, was on my own, and I did it for a test to go, can I spend 6 months out there on my own without any distractions? Like, what will happen?
Exactly. Will temptation prevail, or will you kind of be able to stay on the right path?
Really out there, learn. It's not that bad being on your own.
Yeah.
Did well at work. Succeeded again, got a promotion, and then it comes to the point after 6 months comes up, and they said to me, "There's no job in London really now. Do you want? We're opening an office in San Francisco. Do you want to?" Actually, and also the guy that got me in the job had left the company as well, and I was pretty much below him, so it was all a bit of a tricky time. And they were like, "Do you want to go to San Francisco potentially?" And I said no. My uncle lives there. I don't particularly enjoy it there. And I was and by that point I wanted to go back home to like family and stuff. There was a job in London, but it was just the same job that I'd been doing before, and I didn't particularly want to go back and start again because you have to build up clients and stuff. But by this point, financially was doing really well. Not drinking much, not taking drugs, not gambling. You can't even gamble in America. Well, at that point, you couldn't. In 2012, you couldn't gamble in America.
Not online, yeah.
There was no casino. Actually, there was casinos, but it was miles away. It wasn't even worth it. And then came out to the UK, and after sort of it's been about a year and a half, a period of success and doing well, which my family saw. So I came up to London just to earn an income, kept the same job as before. Didn't really enjoy it too much. And then my dad came to me and said, "I want to move, around the world." He's semi-retired. He hasn't worked for years. And he was like, "Really, I want to, he had a business which he hadn't really done anything for 10 years for, just let it rot basically into just a shell of a company because he was tired out at that point." And he just was doing business in Cuba. Went out to Cuba. Was regularly going out to Cuba, like farm things, I don't know, whatever they do out there. But that was when it was opening up to the States. And he says to me, I'd always take an interest in family business or whatever. And he said to me, "Obviously, I'm either going to close the business down because it's just too much of a pain now and it doesn't make much money. So it's not worth my time. And it upsets me doing it because you have to deal with annoying staff, people still in businesses and stuff, especially business that we're in, it's not great. If you're not hands-on, it doesn't work, basically."
Right.
And he just said, "You can buy it from me on a payment plan." I went, All right, show me the figures. They're awful. But I went, it's better than, at least I'm working to my own tune.
Was there a part of you that thought, like, Dad, give it to me for free?
Nah,
Because I think that's probably how I would feel.
Nah.
I'd be like, but Dad's making me pay for the business.
He'd never do that out of principle. And to be fair, it worked really well because it gave me.
I'm sure it does
because I had to pay. It was a payment plan every month, and I had to pay every month, and I had to make enough money to pay every month. But in the beginning, it was quite an awkward one because all the staff just thought I was a twat.
Yeah, but the boss's son kind of thing. Yeah.
So actually, it got to crit. So I took it over in July or whatever. This was after working with my dad for probably 3 months, just going through all everything, how to do it and stuff. And I actually by December had a completely new team in because I couldn't work with all the previous because they just thought I was a dick. They were just like, they didn't respect me. They just thought they'd been taking the piss for years anyway.
So you had to kind of gut and restart. Yeah.
And restarted with new staff, new everything. And this point, life's good. Haven't drunk for ages. Still in therapy for depression, some of the odd bits of depression, anxiety, which I think will fester with me probably for the rest of my life. It's not something that some people have the ability to have it, but it's the way of dealing with it, I find.
Absolutely. That's the most common thing that I've heard on this podcast. And, it's not that it's something that people get over fully and it's no longer a part of your life. It's about learning to manage feelings of depression and anxiety. And certainly that's the same for me as well. But yeah, the interesting thing, Max, that you mentioned to me about this, because, most people would think inheriting a business like that would be a fantastic opportunity, which of course it is. But I know that you feel quite a lot of pressure, don't you, to sort of not be the one to bring it to ruin potentially or whatever, and to make sure it goes well. And has that been something that you found difficult? That pressure?
Well, yes. So yeah, I mean, it was huge at the beginning. My brother took 20% of the business as well as part of the deal that we did for free. But there was a huge pressure, but I thrived in the pressure.
Nice, yeah.
Instead of going back to drinking, drugs and gambling, with pressure, I thrived in it. I thought, I had a phone and I just sat there. This was after December. We'd gone through new stuff. And I just thought, what I'm going to do is I created another company as well. So we have the generic wholesale company, which supplies, Google, people like that, Chelsea Football Club, loads of the offices in London, which is just set sushi wholesale. So it's because sushi is quite a dangerous product to make because of the raw fish and the rice. We provide just a safe environment delivered to massive corporations who have it for lunches and whatever because they can't make it on site. So that's a very standard out of the box business that was very simple. But the market's there's not much of a market to make that company big.
Yes, I see. Yeah,
There's only so much you can do. And I got to the point in about 6 to 8 months where I got to the maximum of what we could do in that business. And it went well. It was good. But then I'm thinking, I can't just, it's not enough. So I created another business, because I saw a gap in the market for imported Asian ingredients. Because for us, we were getting such bad service with our ingredients that it was awful. People, late deliveries, invoices, like different prices and different products, just so generally, so it was awful. So I just thought, well, how difficult can it be
to do it? Yeah.
To do it. So I tried it, got on the phone. Actually, first of all, I got on the phone. I called up every hotel chain that does Asian ingredients, the executive chefs. And I said, I lied. I said, oh, we're an importer of ingredients now. We did supply, we did at the time supply quite a lot of the hotels in London with sushi. We supply, Mandarin Oriental, the Dorchester, some big hotels, the Rosewoods. And I said, we supply them with Japanese ingredients now and Thai ingredients and Chinese ingredients. But this, because I didn't want to deal with the small individual hotels now because they're good, but you want to scale, you want to deal with chains. And they go, all right, come in. So I met them. And I go, yeah. They go, oh, it's funny because quite of them, we're using one of the people that we use for our products. So, and I'm going, yeah, they're rubbish. And they go, oh, they're going, yeah, they are rubbish. I go, like, cha-ching.
Yeah, seeing the dollar signs or the pound signs in your eyes.
Yeah, I just go, their service is terrible. I go, look, guys, just tell me what you buy. Give me a list of what you buy. I'll price it up. And I had the price list. I said, give me the price list that they're charging. And I just said, look, we'll match it to begin with. And then, yeah, after that, we end up getting a few hotel chains. Started supplying some big names in London. So it's all going swimmingly well. I met a girl, had a girlfriend at the time who I think you've met before, maybe.
Yeah, maybe once in London.
Yeah, and poor her, you know, I wasn't really around that much. I was working a lot. Yeah, it was all good. Moved into a flat, you know, in whatever, and it was all going well. But had the panic that you talk about, you know, the constant fear of failure, that was constantly on my mind. And I used to think this. I think this is going. I used to think this is going this is too easy. It's going too well.
So the anxiety is convincing you that something is going to go wrong.
Something's going to go wrong. Like, you know, 3 years of really, really doing well. Not, you know, no compulsions, no addictions. Still in therapy. Yeah, I basically just put the negative aspects of the addiction and just concentrate on this baby.
Yeah, it's exactly as you were saying before. You know, people that have these addictive personalities, generally speaking, can be very good at, you know, when they throw themselves into a company. And it certainly seems that was the case for
or
you.
A job, or, you know, or even exercise, or, I mean, a lot of marathon runners, I think, must have addictive personalities. And
yeah, you have to
put themselves through that pain.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
You've got to be, you know, addicted to it. Basically, I think. I don't know, but yeah. And then, but at the time, thinking like something's going to go wrong. I don't know. Just always in the back of the head, something's going to go wrong. Terrified of losing your biggest clients.
Yeah.
But at this point, yeah, you know, the great thing about, you know, having something to do all the time is you can't.
There's less time to do negative things, i.e., drinking.
Yeah, I still was drinking, not addictively, but, you know, under control. Again, not to the extent, because I'm sure I'll explain later, like the drinking out of unhappiness, right? That wasn't it. That's when it gets, for me personally, it becomes a problem. And I think for a lot of people it does. It's drinking, fine, not over drinking, not staying out till 5 a.m. every night, you know, being relatively safe in the environment that you're drinking, not, you know, being the drunkest person in the room. Yeah, so that was, so, you know, and it's great going on holidays, you know, traveling the world, all these things, you know, wholesome, great things that tend to actually make someone happy.
It sounds as though, Max, as if you sort of became quite successful in this period. You know, you started up this business, and you had the family business as well, and you're still quite young to some extent.
22, 26, yeah.
Well, yeah. So I'd say that's pretty young to have sort of that level of success. Yeah. Was it difficult to keep your feet on the ground because of that? Does the success go to your head in some way, and does that start to eat away at you a bit?
You're obviously, to put it bluntly, earning sort of the top 1% of the population, you know, and you're only 22, 23. It's not, I've never been one to live in the biggest house, whatever, live in the biggest, you know, I don't work for that. That's not why I like to work, to have the Rolex or the fast sports car. I don't even have a driving license. But so in regards to no, during that 4 years, no, because, you know, life is really stable. I just didn't even really know. To be completely honest, I didn't really know how well I was doing. I didn't. I remember at the time just thinking, I didn't think I was doing well. I remember being worried about financial stuff because, again, I always had this impending doom feeling that something was going to go wrong.
Yeah, and that's just inherently anxiety, isn't it? That's something that I live with every day. It's just your brain is telling you whenever you're going through a good period, this is going to go wrong.
Yeah,
At
yeah,
any minute now, this is going to go wrong. So
yeah.
yeah, I can certainly
You
understand that.
constantly just have this impending doom feeling. Well, in business, it's it's either like you're going to have a big food poisoning scandal. You read about it, like
Yeah,
just weird things like that,
yeah,
or your biggest client's going to, or there's going to be someone who comes in with more money, a competition, and just
wipes you out.
wipes you out, or just small things like that. But nothing happened for 4 years in that regard. So um, we were quite lucky. Success went to my head probably for that 3-4 years. No, whilst it was going well, I was too busy, with having a girlfriend at the time and having a life outside of that. Too busy working, whatever. Um, life was pretty normal, as you think it is. As I said, I don't even have a driving license. Didn't buy a car. I think the flashiest thing I bought was an Omega watch.
Yeah, very nice bit of kit, but yeah.
Yeah. It was an Omega watch. But yeah, and then the problem with and that inherently, I think people do tend to, whilst things are going well and they're not drinking and they're not taking drugs and they're not doing gambling or whatever their vice is, I think people tend to be relatively on their feet. It's the vices that create ungroundedness, arseholeness, vindictiveness, because it's it's the feeling of not being good enough, right? Why a lot of it is why you drink, why you take drugs, why you gamble, or whatever. It's that's the base of it, right? So that if you look into it, that's the base of it. And that's also why addicts can be so successful at other things, because throughout the time of not you just don't, sometimes you don't feel good enough. You have a low self-esteem. You don't think so you're constantly striving to be better. That's why you can put negativity, being an addict, into positive things and really, really, really make them work. And it's hard to explain that to people, like why it's positive as well as negative, because it is a negative. I've lost multiple friends. I've lost relationships. My family have almost walked away from me. I've pissed off hundreds of people because of drugs, alcohol, and gambling. But the great thing that I look at it is that happens. Yes, it's horrible. It's happened. As long as I do something, as long as I know that it's happened and why it's happened. I do blame myself for, till I was 22 or 22, I was probably not. I was a massive arsehole, right? Because I was constantly drinking, constantly, there was just so much gone and his head was gone.
Yeah, but it's an illness, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is an illness, yeah. And I don't look at it as an illness, to be honest with you. I look at it, as I said, now I look at it as a positive thing. Channeling everything in something positive, right? But it is an illness. It is an illness. And it's something that you can cure easily through small things. Admitting it first, probably your first bet. Speaking, I think therapy personally is probably key. And a healthy lifestyle. And those three things, if you want to turn it into something good, then you can. But the problem, as you say, it is an illness. The problem with illnesses is, they can bite you in the arse in the future.
Yeah, and I guess that, from the way that you're speaking about how things were going, it seems that everything was going great. And I'm sure listeners are thinking this as well. It sounds as though there's a big but coming. It sounds as though there's a big sort of block in the road. If you could talk us through that.
You're 25 years old, you're employing, up to 15 to 20 people. You're talking to accountants, you're talking to solicitors, you generally do finally feel the void that you're missing. You do feel quite good.
Yeah, I can imagine that would feel great.
Like,
Yeah.
as in you feel quite successful, you know, and the void that has always been missing probably when I was younger was filling. um, and it's hard to sort of explain. It was very stressful. You know, it's hard to explain. That void was filling with, and also the new business was actually taking up my whole time. I'd managed to get someone else to run the other business for a cut of the profits or whatever, and I was actually trying to build this new business, and I loved it, every second of it. You know, got real deep into it. Went out to Japan. You know, managed to actually have this sort of lifestyle that I actually wanted. I'd always my uncle is CEO of a mining company, a big NASDAQ listed mining company, travels around the world. My dad always, you know, has had businesses, traveled around the world. People that I'd actually looked up to, I look up to, you know, I'd always looked up to business people when I was younger and thought I want that lifestyle. And I finally started to, you know, get to the point where I was like, geez, this could be something big. And then this is probably when I was about 25. Again, it hadn't really hit home. I was living in a one bed, you know, not paying much, still splitting rent with my ex-girlfriend. Didn't really realize how well I was doing, but just working. And then obviously coronavirus hit.
Yeah. Flip the script totally.
Yeah. And then, you know, overnight, I got a phone call from pretty much, because it was Oil Week in London. So Oil Week's in February, where all the 5-star hotels in London host massive events, which for us is, I mean, we turn over like 150 grand that week sometimes.
Yeah, it's bread and butter. Yeah.
Like it's a humongous week. And I'd just been skiing, and I went to Barcelona to meet my, I think my dad's friend. Yeah, I went to Barcelona to meet my dad's friend. And then you hear about coronavirus, right? And you go, oh, it's nothing.
Yeah, I thought the same. I was like, this isn't going to be a problem at all. How wrong I was.
Went to Barcelona, got a call from my dad's friend going, I've got this thing called coronavirus when I got back. And I go, oh yeah, fair enough. I haven't got it.
Yeah.
I feel fine. And then we had this Oil Week the next week and getting to work after this break. And I get a phone call from every single hotel. We've cancelled, you know, we're cancelling. Sorry, we're not taking on the liability of having a risk of a spread at that. Because at this point, there'd been like, you know, you heard about Barclays being coronavirus. They didn't want to take responsibility of being the hotel that spread coronavirus. So they all cancelled. So I'm sitting there going, shit, this is serious. And I turned around, I'd employed 2 lads in the office who had just come out of uni. And I said to them, guys, I think, you know, this might be the end.
God, yeah. Like you actually thought that was going to be sort of the end of the business. You weren't worried that it was just going to be a period. You were actually worried that this was going to be the end of everything.
No, I said to them, I said, I don't know what I'm going to, I said, you might not have a job in 2 weeks. I said, because everything got cancelled.
Wow. Yeah.
So we'd gone from, you know, potentially 150 grand a week to 0. Bearing in mind, you still got to pay 15 to 20 people's wages and rent, everything. And I went, oh my God. I didn't, at that point, I just thought the government came out with some rubbish. I remember they did two budgets. They did a typical like March budget or whatever. Or actually, it's a year ago now. What's the date today? 25th February. They have a budget now, or whenever the budget is. And Rishi Sunak did a 50 billion pound bailout for businesses affected by coronavirus. Because again, they didn't really know how big it was. And I thought, I was going, that's not enough.
Yeah.
And I think they were talking about like £1,000 a week or something for businesses that are closed or something. And I was going, shit. I said to everyone at work, got them into the meeting. I said, guys, you know, we've obviously had a really good 3 years, 4 years. You know, you've been with me, a lot of them have been with me for 4 years, 2 to 4 years since. And I said, you know, I want to keep you on. What can I do?
So at this point, furlough hadn't been
No.
announced, and for anyone that's listening in the US, furlough is essentially where the government still pay your employees' wages, and you don't have to, so you can still keep them on.
So I sent them all away, and I said, look, guys, I'm going to pay you. I think I said I'm going to pay 500 quid a month each, because at this point, again, we all thought it'd be over in 3 months, right? It was back by June, I think everyone was saying.
Yeah.
And I said I'm going to pay 500 quid a month each, and it'll all be fine. And then they were going, well, what about my family? I just went like I don't know what to do. And a few of them were like, what about my family now? And I said,
how hard was that for you? Because you'd had all the highs as a kind of young, young company owner, but to have to walk into a room and say to people effectively, you're going to have to live off 500 quid despite your family situation or whatever, that must have been so difficult to do.
In a way, we had quite a young team. So the young guys, I was like, look, guys, a lot of them, they just come out of uni. They lived at home. I was like, lads, look, 500 quid a month. You're not going to be going out because we're going to be going into a lockdown. Just be skint for 3 months and just live at home. You actually might save money because you're not boozing every freaking weekend.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then the hard thing was, the impossible thing was going in, and they were like, one of the drivers, had just had a baby. Lovely guy, like adored him. Walked into the office every morning, would go, here's a coffee, boss, or I don't drink coffee, but here's a hot chocolate. And then obviously had another lady on whose kids had a kid, and she was a single mum. And I'm going, I'm 26. I'm going, I don't know. I just don't know what to do. So I went out. That's why I often £500 each, which is a lot of money. That's just free money because there's no income. It was the best that I could do at the time, because again, I'm 26. So I have to think about, I have to think about until I'm 50 years old. Being self-employed is, you have to think your whole life. I'm not going to get a job. Am I really realistically at somewhere when I'm 30 or whatever? So then did that, but then luckily, obviously, the furlough came in. So thank God furloughed everyone until our furlough until the end of coronavirus. And it's like some of them are still on furlough. So, well, some of them got other jobs, but I think about 5 or 6 of them are still on furlough. Haven't worked for 12 months now.
That must have been difficult for them, but at least they're getting paid. I mean, I was put on furlough, and in the beginning, it felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Even though I was living at, moved back in with my parents, and so money wasn't really an issue. But it's still sort of like, in terms of my self-esteem, it didn't feel great. And but it was obviously a saviour for you, because it provided these people, your staff with an income, and so it sounds like they were sorted a bit. But obviously for you, this must have been really tough, because and this is the problem again about having a bit of an addictive personality. When everything's going well with work and you can throw yourself fully into it, that's great, because it's occupying that side of your brain. But as soon as that void is there again, it must have been quite difficult for you.
So I went in and I, with my ex-girlfriend at the time and my brother, I think, and I cleared out all the fridges, cleared out everything. I went through all the freezers, blah blah blah. Shut the door, close the shutters. And that day there was the worst day of my life ever. I left. To be fair, we were owed, because obviously in the way that we work 30 days payment term. So in 30 days, people pay us at the end of the month. So for about 2 weeks, I had a big job of actually chasing people for money when they're closed, and they're in the same position as me. So for about 2 weeks, I literally spent 2 weeks on the phone just calling people, going, please just pay now, because you want to be the first one paid, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because if you get left at the end, you won't get it.
You're not getting paid.
So for 2 weeks, I was like, right, let's just get everyone's pay. Just calling up, going, pay, like just send me something. So that was fine. And then it got to the point where I was like, I basically I wasn't furloughed or whatever. I was just had no income. which was fine because I was lucky that I'd saved, money over the last 4 years. And I just sat there and then I go, what happens? You start drinking again. And then you start, not because it's fun, you start drinking because you're unhappy.
Yeah, and that's where it gets dangerous.
And then started drinking again, started heavily drinking again. Didn't have to think about work, waking up at like 1 PM, which is weird. I've been waking up at 5 o'clock for ages. Started drinking heavily. And then got really depressed.
Wow.
Had really bad depression, fell out of my family.
Max, so when you say you got really depressed, now there'll be a lot of people listening to this podcast, some of them who have experienced depression, but a lot of them who haven't. And we both spoke about anxiety a bit, about the feeling of like impending doom that you just kind of constantly live with, thinking something's going to go wrong. And I know it's really difficult sometimes to express how feelings of mental illness feel, but could you try and put into words how depression manifests itself for you?
So I explain it in this way. It's like waking up. So I call it the black dog, right? I think it's quite a well-known term, the black dog.
It is, yeah.
It's like waking up with a shadow over you every morning and dreading the whole day ahead. So you wake up and you feel so awful about yourself and so awful about everything that you don't know what's going on. You're like a zombie. The negativity gets you. You have anxiety because that comes with depression. Going for a walk seems like the hardest thing on earth. Like I can't explain it. It's like even going to the shop. You can't concentrate on anything. You can't concentrate. You drink. If you're an addict as well, generally people with depression are addicts. You drink. The people who love you the most, unfortunately, they see the pain that you're in and you push them away, right? Family, girlfriend, etc. And all they want to do is fix it. But the problem with depression is it can't be fixed by anyone.
No.
The only person that can fix it is you. But it's like waking up every day with, it's hard to explain. It is. And I had a saying, and I can't remember I put it somewhere, but
I actually think you explained that really well. I think listeners might actually be able to kind of relate to that a bit, although they haven't experienced it themselves. It will, at least describe that feeling. And it sounds horrible, man. And obviously, you must have started to go into a really difficult place. Obviously, you'd been through some peaks and troughs before, right? You'd had your highs, you'd had your lows. Does it help when you're going into another bad point, knowing that you've been there before, or does it make it worse in a sense?
So for the initial month, you don't think anything's going to, you're not in, when it hits, the black dog hits, you don't think straight. You're not thinking straight. I don't even think about the end. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And also you don't sleep right, bearing in mind. Some people have I have the lack of sleep. Some people have the full sleep, but I don't sleep. So you're also lacking sleep. You don't for the first month, you don't know what's going on. And then after a month, you do think, oh, I've been through this before.
Yeah.
And then you go, but then you can't get yourself into the coping mechanisms because you're not ready. You try, you keep trying things like doing the running or going to the therapy. I went to therapy, and it just doesn't work. And you keep digging away at small things. The problem is I was drinking at the time, and you can't deal with depression whilst drinking. You just can't. It's impossible. The alcohol is a depressant, but and then obviously you take drugs as well sometimes, which also is a depressant.
Yeah.
So for the initial month, and then what happened with this one is it because I was drinking heavily, falling out of my family, had a bad relationship, like then you start to blame yourself. You feel guilt, self-doubt. You don't have anything to concentrate on. I put work, we did in July. I remember we opened up again for a little bit. So work, I didn't even care.
Really?
I couldn't have even cared less because I knew that we were going into another lockdown. I was like, oh, what's the point? So drinking heavily, I went on like holidays and would just get absolutely obliterated for 5 days, 6 days from when I arrived to when I left. Wake up, beer, leave, beer. Like even on the plane home drinking. And I knew what was going on. I wasn't stupid to the fact that this isn't right. But you're just holding on for dear life.
Yeah, it's interesting that even though, to kind of use this analogy, you're driving and you see the warning light come up, even though it's there, it's that strong that you can't stop yourself. And I guess that was happening for you.
You're holding on for dear life. That's how it feels. Honestly, every day you feel like, and the drinking does help because when you're drunk, when I say it does help, it doesn't, it makes it worse. But
in the moment it feels like it's helping. Yeah, I can understand that.
When you're feeling that low at 2:00 in the afternoon, and if you have a drink, you'll feel okay. Then you become dependent on alcohol. And that is the worst mix you can ever have in the entire world. And that happened to me throughout the first lockdown, came out of that, even when we were off the lockdown, drinking, because then I missed going to the pubs. And I would say until, and then unfortunately went through again, I was just drinking so heavily that I didn't care about anyone. I was so depressed that I didn't care about anyone around me. Family couldn't care. They were done with me, fed up with me. Girlfriend at the time, fed up with me. I felt so guilty about the whole situation. She finally left. Don't know why she hung around for so long. Don't blame her for leaving. I had managed to pretty much, apart from my mum, my friends were a bit fed up with me. My housemates fed up with me. I'd managed to pretty much push everyone away.
Burn every bridge out there, yeah.
I'd say, and basically it got to, I went to Dubai to try and sort my head out. Just got pissed for 22 days or whatever.
Yeah, it was never going to help. Yeah,
spent a fortune, tried to buy myself happiness, didn't work. Made me feel 100 times worse. Got back from Dubai, drunk every day. I think I went on I think I drank like 48 days in a row or something. I can now drink, and it got to the point where I could do 4 bottles of wine, 5 bottles of wine in the evening. My housemates would see me just like slurring on the sofa going to bed. It was horrendous. It was that bad. Going into work though.
Really? Still?
Yeah. Didn't really get hangovers because it got to that point where
it's just there's so much in your system that it's actually never fully coming out.
So screwed. No, you're talking about someone who can't think. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, so not only you got anxiety, you got the depression, then you got the hangovers, and you got the alcohol, and then you got the cloud of judgment. You're pissing everyone off constantly. You've pushed everyone away. You've got the guilt, the shame.
Yeah, and that just makes it worse.
By this point, I'd pretty much managed to push, after 9 months of heavy drinking and depression and being a zombie for 9 months, and the worst thing about it is financially I could just afford to do it. That most people would be worried about financially, but I was trying to, like, with the trip to Dubai, with going on holidays during the summer, I was trying to buy happiness. I was trying to buy something that wasn't the feeling that I had, and it just does not work. Even the consumption of wine, I moved, instead of the normal 20 quid a bottle of wine, because I liked 60 quid bottles of wine, I'd have 4 of them, spending like 150 quid a night on wine. And then, everyone's going, just spunking your money up the wall. You're just drunk out, pissing everyone off. Pushed my parents away from me, pushed my ex-girlfriend away from me, pushed my mum. Actually, typical mum, was unpushable away, but that's mum's thing. She was there every day, for me, which bless her, because she didn't know the full extent of the problem. And I actually came clean to her about the full extent of the problem back in December, which was just a shock to her, because for years she'd never seen it. You don't see this, you don't see on my Instagram or, my Facebook or whatever, me on the sofa sitting there slurred, can't talk, so depressed.
Yeah, there's a really sort of important lesson there, because, to a lot of people, right, looking at your social media, they would have seen the holidays, they would have seen Dubai, they would have seen all of this, right, and the spending money, and some people might feel like really envious about that, and they think, what a great life, but behind the scenes, you were going through absolute hell, and that just, there's probably a lot of that out there,
Oh, 100%. That's why when I see anything on Instagram, I don't think about it. I honestly, because even when I was in Dubai, yeah, fair enough, I was having a good time, but it wasn't really that. I was just pissed the whole time. It actually got to the point, because I wasn't going to come home. I was just, I was going to stay out there and didn't want to come back to London. Just wanted to get away. Was escapism basically, with drinking heavily, and it got to the point where I drunk. I was hung up, and I had an all-day session of just on my own in a hotel room. And then my mate actually came to join me later. But and I woke up and I was just horrendously ill.
Really? Like all the drinking finally
caught up. I don't know if you've had it before, but the sweating, the vomiting, the cloudy head, the brain fog, the headache, the nausea. Called up my dad in tears at like 4 a.m. in Dubai. I hadn't slept because I couldn't sleep because I was so ill. Tears being like, I just don't know what to do. I need to do something, because I'm going to die if I continue. I am, because I'm drinking 15 pints a day, followed by a half bottle of vodka in the evening. That's the extent it got to. Cocktails, shots, whatever, and it didn't think it was a problem, because I just felt fine, because I was just drunk the whole time. But when you sober up, I was like, Jesus, this is an issue. And then I booked a flight home that morning, came back to London, sobered up a little bit, didn't drink for a couple of days, started to feel all right again. The drinking crept back in, as it does. Had a terrible time in January with, emotional things, etc. The same old rubbish. And it got to the point one day where my housemates pretty much said to me, unless you sort your shit out. My dad called me up as well and said, me and Luca cried for half an hour on the phone. My brother's Lucas. You're a tramp. Generally, you're just a fucking waster. What you're doing, you're just a loser. And I hadn't thought of it as being a loser. I thought, I'm a legend, going out drinking, trying to do everything, being the man, doing, basically doing whatever. And it hit home. I literally sat there and I went, Jesus Christ, I've had arguments with everyone now.
Yeah, there's no one sort of not on the list. Yeah,
there's no one on the only one is my mum. And I was like, and I said to my dad, I said, why is it hurting you so much? To go, because you don't realise that, we don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. Do you know how horrible that feeling is? And I generally didn't even think about drinking being unhealthy, but when you've drunk for 9 months solid, it's like you don't know about the effects it has on your body, let alone your head. And then finally, spent 4 days getting sober. The thought of not drinking, I can't explain to you, is just horrendous.
Terrifying. Yeah.
It's so daunting. To think I've got to give that up, the crutch that I've been using for so long.
To block everything out, yeah.
The first 4 days is horrendous. it's just so daunting. I don't know if you haven't drunk for a long time, but I hadn't not drunk, daily for 9 months.
Wow.
Or like the odd day off here and there, but then I actually text my housemates on a group. I said, guys, that's it. I said, from tomorrow, I'm going to go for a run tomorrow morning. I'm going to go to work at 8 a.m. and I'm going to make the business for when it comes back. I'm going to make it
perfect.
Perfect again. I'm going to put my addiction and negative things, booked therapy that day, writ down plans of what I can do to put my negative thoughts that I'd had into positive things, came up with all sorts of things at work. Now, going to work at early every day now, 7 a.m. in the morning. And that was the rock bottom. And that was, and since that day, I've drunk once, had one. So in about a month and a half now.
Well, I honestly think it's incredibly impressive that you've been able to sort of change since that day. And also realistically speaking, 9 months, there'll be people out there who have gone through a lot longer periods of addiction, so it's actually quite a quick turnaround in some ways. And
well, you got to also understand that it incessantly, it probably has been a problem for years.
Of course. Yeah, of course. But at least,
the problem is, as I said, I had it under control for so long, and then when you lose control, you lose control. But yeah, so now, so I mean, it's and part of the coming back to life and normality is doing this charity thing to raise money for charity, a challenge, a really healthy challenge, enjoyable challenge. And it's amazing.
Yeah, talk to me about the decision to take on this challenge to do 300 kilometers in 30 days to raise money for Young Minds, right? Which is a great mental health charity, and obviously we'll put links to we'll put your donation link in the description and stuff like that. But yeah, talk to me about the decision to take on that challenge when sort of all of this that's happened is still so fresh,
Well, just generally. I've always I've raised money from before, because I think a lot of my problems came from obviously childhoods, and I do think that in schools and stuff, whatever, they should be teaching the importance of mental health.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Yeah,
rather than whatever, I don't know what they teach nowadays, but when I was at school, it wasn't even a subject. No one even talks about it. And actually, it was detrimental to, a lot of stuff at school is detrimental to mental health, I think. But the good thing about mine, and I was detrimental to other people's mental health at school probably as well, with being nasty to people, whatever, and never really got taught the effects that childhood has on people's adults' life. So so mine to me is close to heart, because I, wish that back in, when I was 16 or whatever, or 18, I had an opportunity to talk to someone who a professional, and that's what they do. They provide young people with the opportunities to talk to therapists and stuff like that, and promote mental health in young people.
Well, you're doing a fantastic thing, man. Almost felt quite emotional when you were explaining, sort of the dark depths that you got to in those 9 months recently, and reliving that phone conversation with obviously your brother and your dad, who I know, and obviously knowing you as well for so many years, and sort of hearing this for the first time from you. It's you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot, mate, and to be coming out the other side of it now, that is no small feat. That is really something to be proud of, and I hope that you can stay on that course. How are you feeling now mentally? Obviously you're feeling better, but is it something that you think are you feeling confident that it's going to last, or are you worried?
I mean, mentally right now, I'm just so concentrated in this charity thing, getting out there every day, doing the running. It's 2 hours a day. Sounds like it's quite nice, especially with the lockdowns don't help the mental thing. So I blame everything on, the business closing, but the actual restrictions of the lockdowns screwed my mental health as well. I'm a sociable person. I love meeting people. I like playing five-a-side football. It's not all the business as such. It's the restrictions are difficult, and that's what I found so difficult in November, December, and January, especially coming out. I came out of a breakup just going into November's lockdown, right? And it was a horrible breakup and whatever. But it's just, and then I was on my own in a flat in St. Paul's, locked down. Again, drinking heavily. But what's good now is there's a path, right?
Right.
I've now have to go into work, and I now have to do this 10 kilometer run every day, and I now go for a walk, whatever. Instead of channeling the negative stuff, I've hit the rock bottom. I generally have. It couldn't continue. As I said, I would have been dead. That's no joke. I haven't done a liver test, but I will do.
But, I imagine that's quite scary. Yeah.
I've hit the rock bottom. I've done it before. I've hit rock bottom before. I know, the great thing about getting out of situations like that and having the ability to get out of situations like that is you do, in the future, you can spot the situations coming off a mile off. In hindsight, with the March lockdown, I would have got, I should have just gone and got a, delivery job on a bike or something, or, made myself busy.
Yeah. So you feel now like you're honestly much better equipped to sort of deal with potential problems in the future because you've been through them so many times before.
Because it's happened now twice before. I feel, and I've got the tools of therapy. I'm not going to stop the therapy. I've got the tools of people close to me. That's the one thing I would always recommend. You're ever in the throes of anything, doesn't matter how bad things are, tell people who are close to you. And if they, call them 50 times if you have to. Your life's way more important than 50 times, than pissing them off. If you have to call your dad 10 times a day, call them, whatever. If they don't understand that, then that's, they're not necessarily the right person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
I agree with that.
Like that, it's all about having the right support network. Made amends with a lot of people that I've pissed off over the last, 9 months, whatever.
I was going to ask you about that. What's the sort of the reception that you've had to this change? How has that been? Have people been really impressed with it? Have bridges started to be rebuilt? Or
I've made amends, with a lot. I've made amends with a lot of people. The problem with going through that is a lot of people don't understand it.
Yeah, of course.
They just think you're an arsehole. But the argument is alcohol makes everyone an arsehole. Really, they're not great. I can't apologize more. You can't do more. You do feel the feelings of shame and guilt talking about it like this. You probably don't think, you think, oh, I'm so confident that I'll talk about things like this to a on a podcast, but you do wake up with the feeling of I fucking fucked up.
Yeah, of course, man.
Again, the good thing about being sober is your relationships just so much. People actually want to. People want to see you. People want to do things with you. People are supportive of you. Whereas when you're just constantly negative and depressed and drunk and whatever, you just find that people just get fed up.
Absolutely. Well, I hope this podcast helps some people to sort of understand where some of that all came from, because I think it's quite difficult to sit here and listen to this story in full and then sort of, still feel a sort of negative way about it. I mean, I think that's probably, partly because of the way I'm made up. I've been through some similar things, not the same, but some similar things, and I'm a massive believer, and I think that it shows in starting this podcast that, people change, man. Like people can change, and a lot of stuff, isn't your fault. If you suffer with addiction and that, makes you act a certain way, like in my opinion, that's not necessarily your fault, right? So I hope that this goes a long way towards sort of explaining some of that. And I think you should be really proud of the changes that you've made, and also I think you should be proud of making the decision to come on here, because I think your story has the ability to help a lot of people as well. You know, you've not just been down once, you've been down a couple of times, and you've got yourself back up each time. So I think people can find a lot of inspiration in that. What role do you see alcohol playing in your life going forward? Is it something that, are you thinking total abstinence? Are you thinking place of control?
So this is a question that's very difficult for 26-year-olds, right? And you know, this is a question that I do sit there and have with, you know, therapists and you know, even like, you know, friends and stuff. And it's a question I haven't quite answered yet. It's not, alcohol is not good for me. I've understood that. You know, I reach for it when I'm unhappy. I've understood that. Now I've got other things that I'm going to reach to, you know, running, whatever, work, whatever, meeting people, you know. Am I going to go fully abstinence in the future? I've drunk once in a month and a half. If I could continue that relationship with alcohol, I would. It's difficult. I'll probably sit here in 4 years' time, you know, we'll have coronavirus number 2 and be doing the same thing. I don't know.
No, I appreciate that, man. It's you know, it's an impossible question. It's just something that I thought, you know, listeners might have been thinking. You know, obviously it's been so great for you that, yeah. But I certainly understand that it's not the easiest thing to kick, right?
At the moment, it's one day at a time,
and that's how it should be. I really think.
Yeah. And you know, I've got this challenge that I'm doing. I can't drink alongside it because I wouldn't be able to do it. So it's good. I've got another challenge coming up in September that I'm going to do.
Nice. What's the challenge?
So it's 10 half marathons in 20 days in 10 different cities.
Wow.
So I'm going to around Europe. So 1 day traveling, 1 day half marathon, 1 day traveling, 1 day half marathon.
Well, that'll keep you really on the straight and narrow because there's no time to drink in all of that.
Yeah, but that's in September, hopefully, coronavirus pending. If not, I'll do it in England. But that's going to be for charity as well. But yeah, with alcohol, it's 1 day at a time. That's working for me at the moment. It's so difficult as a 26-year-old to sit here and go, I'm going to go absent for the rest of my life. You know,
it's really difficult.
The benefits of no alcohol are amazing, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've done a lot of no drinking lately, and I just can't argue with the benefits. Yeah,
but then we're in lockdown.
It's easy now, isn't it? It's easy to not drink because you're not going out.
It's not that enjoyable drinking now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you're not missing out much. Come April the 13th or whatever, when people start going to outside things, maybe by then I'll go, you know, I've had such a good time not drinking, I'll continue it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, at the stage you're in now, it's all quite fresh, and it's impossible to put times on it and to know completely how your relationship will be. But you're obviously doing all the right things at the moment to get yourself in the best possible place. And Max, you've got an incredible story, man. So many ups and downs, and I really hope that this time it's an up even longer than.
You know, now it's just now there's an end to this coronavirus madness. You know, I think a lot of people are going to be relieved. A lot of people are going to I can tell already that a lot of people are going to be a lot happier. As I said, I think it's 2 million people that I read have had really bad mental health impacts from all the lockdowns and stuff. So there's a lot of people out there, you know, who I think it's very, very good for.
Yeah, man, exactly. And that's, you know, another reason why I was keen to get you on, because I think, you know, it's a really current story as well that is relevant to so many people. Max, as you know, a way I like to finish off the podcast is by getting guests to give listeners a couple of bits of advice should they ever find themselves going through tough situations. Now, you know, obviously you've had the drinking, you've had gambling, you've had a few things going on in your life and mental health stuff as well. The advice that you give can be specific to those things, or it can just be general, so that someone that's just going through a hard time in general can relate. I'll leave that up to you.
I would say, you know, the one thing about going through a hard time, that the most important thing is, and, you know, has saved me from so many terrible situations, is talk. If you have to ring your best mate 20 times in a day to talk to the bloke because you're not feeling right, do it. You know, at the end of the day, what if they're going to get a bit annoyed about it, but you know, when you're better, you say to them, you know, that helped me. You know, you saved me, you know, from whatever the consequences are of how you're feeling. Talk to your parents, tell people around you what's happening, because the worst thing you don't want to know is the worst thing you want is for people to think you're an idiot, or you're being an idiot, you're being horrible, you're being nasty, or you know, you're being so selfish or whatever, because that just increases the feelings, you know. Whereas if you tell people around you, the people you live with, the people that are close to you, then they can slightly understand. They don't fully understand, but they can slightly understand the situation that you're in, and they can be more tolerant to the fact that you might be needy, you might be selfish or whatever. But you know, if it helps at the point you're at your lowest, there's no other option. You know, it's so important to just tell people, because I can't, if I hadn't have been able to talk to my friends and my family and stuff, you know, I don't know what I would have, where I would have been and what I would have done. You know, I certainly wouldn't have been in the situation I'm now if I didn't, because if I wasn't honest to my family, you know, my dad lives in Asia. He wouldn't have known I was drinking a lot. He only knew because I was telling him. So yeah, just try and be as honest with people around you as possible, that you are struggling. And then the second thing is and it's difficult. I know sometimes I don't know how it works in the NHS, but if you can't afford it, go to a doctor and get therapy. Basically, I don't know how it works in the NHS. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, you can go to the doctor, and then they like. I went to the doctor the other day because I had shortness of breath, and you know they mentioned that they thought it might have been anxiety and stuff. And obviously I know I've had anxiety for years, but I actually thought it was something physical. Anyway, yeah, she referred me to this thing. It's called like talking therapy, and it's free. They send you a link. You can go on, request an appointment. So yeah, help is there for if anyone's out there and they are feeling bad. You know, go to the doctors. You'll be, you know, you'll get the referral that you need.
Yeah, and go and yeah. Well, basically, I think I personally think talk to a professional. And if you don't like the one you're talking to, get another one.
Change it. Absolutely.
Yeah, don't stick with someone you don't want.
It's such a personal thing, isn't it? Like the person that you choose to open up to in that way, you have to get on with them,
and you have to trust them as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you know, if you're not at that point in life, generally they are the most important. Well, to me, they're the most important people of your life, because you're speaking complete confidentiality to them about things that, you know, you don't speak to anyone about. And it's just key. I think that's key in anything, because again, even if they give you a little bit of advice, you know, I wouldn't be doing this charity thing probably if I didn't get therapy. You know, just a little bit and they nudge you along going, oh, you know, they don't say you have to do this. They just go, oh, you know, maybe drink 2 liters of water a day, see how it makes you feel. Maybe eat lots of veg, see how it makes you feel. Maybe exercise every day. They don't force it on you. They give you little nuggets of things. You try it and then you feel better and you go, oh, I'll make that a routine. Or just simple things, you know, and sometimes you have to be told. But yeah, taught to a professional, really, I think it's probably the most. And then if you've got a serious problem with alcohol or drugs or gambling, the Anonymous the 12-step programs work for some people. But I'm yet to go through the 12 steps, but I mean, I know a lot of people have been through them and it's worked very, very well.
Well, I think that's really well-rounded advice, man. You know, I think communication.
Oh, and sorry, there's one more thing. If you feel bad and you feel depressed, don't drink.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because you know, as you mentioned before, it's a depressant, and it's only going to make you feel worse. But yeah, absolutely. As I was saying, you know, communicating about how we feel is something we should all be doing more. You know, you don't have to be suffering from a mental illness to feel better by sharing your thoughts and feelings with someone else. And then obviously, you know, if it gets beyond a point of control where it's really affecting your life, obviously, you know, therapy and stuff like that is a good way to go. Max, yeah, I think think you should be incredibly proud of where you've got yourself today. And I can only hope that things continue to get better and better and better, both for you personally, and also for business. And thanks so much for coming on and being so honest about your story. I think it's going to help a lot of people out there.
Fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. If it helps one person, that's all that matters generally. Even with the posting stuff on Instagram now, just if someone reads something that I say, then fingers crossed. It's all it matters,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming on, mate. And as I say, the links to donate to Max's challenge, running 300k in 30 days, raising money for young minds. Yeah, that'll be in the description. So yeah, make sure you go and donate. And cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.
That's it for today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. And also that way it makes sure that you never miss an episode. If you've got a story you want to share on the Back on Track podcast, get in touch, give me a shout. I'd love to hear from you via info@backontrackpodcast.com.